Hello, I'm here at our nursery, Kiln Farm Nursery, and today I'm going to talk about peat-free compost. So many people are asking us now how to use it and struggling. So in response, this is the video all about it. Everybody has had disasters with peat-free compost, and that's because it's a whole new medium to work with. So in order to deal with that, we first need to understand the composition of the compost. So this is peat-free compost, and it is actually made of all sorts of things. No compost is the same. You will get different things according to the variety you buy. But basically the main constituents of this are likely to be grit, bark chip, organic green waste, and also coir. So that's coconut husk that you find in your hanging basket liners as well. Whereas the peat, as we all know, comes from a peat bog and is compressed plant matter that's been compressed over thousands of years, and so it naturally holds and retains the water. So they might not look terribly different at this stage, but the water will be held and stored in the peat, whereas in the peat-free it will drain through. And this is where things go wrong. And here are some of the suggestions, because there are lots of things that you can do to help. So really make sure that you water really regularly. It's not going to forgive you like peat, and that's what plants really need. It's a vital nutrient for their survival. If you're watering more often, what you'll find is that the nutrients that were in your basket or your container will just flow straight through. So you, as well as watering, you need to feed more regularly. The whole thing about peat was, if it held the water, it held any nutrients that you gave the plant within the water. With peat-free, if the water's gone right through, it's going to drain out. So feed more regularly. You can use granules, or if you're watering regularly, you can also put liquid feed into the water. Think about what type of feed you're going to be using. So if you've got the water that's running through quite freely, you need to think about the impact it will have on the rest of your garden and the environment in general. So I would highly recommend that you think about trying to have organic fertilisers, and certainly more natural fertilisers. I know some super gardeners out there would make nettle tea or comfrey tea, which feeds your plants. But if you can't, now out on the market there are a lot more things that are labelled specifically organic, and that you can use those to make sure that you're not harming the environment, which is detrimental for what we're trying to do with peat-free compost. So if you've watched my hanging basket video, you'll know that I also use water retaining gel, and when it's dry it looks like this, but when you mix it in with the compost, it absorbs the moisture, holds the moisture, and then as the compost dries out, it then releases that moisture back into the basket, and that continues for the life of your basket. So that's worth considering, especially for things like summer bedding that are inclined to dry out particularly quickly anyway. Once you've done your watering, there are two really important checks to make, and I'm using these sweet peas as a demonstration here. So this is in peat-free compost. We've grown them at the nursery. But when you water, if you're not careful with peat-free compost, it forms like a crust across the top. So in future, as you water, the water just tips over the side instead of draining through. So I call it the Dibber Technique, and you need to put your finger right into the compost and make sure that that is wet underneath that top layer. And when you're working with hanging baskets, that's even harder, because sometimes they're up high and you don't realise. So you do just need to do the same check and put your finger in and just check how dry it is actually inside the basket. And even more confusing is that sometimes it will be dry on the top, but if it's in a container that hasn't got any holes, then it will be wet, really soggy underneath, and that's why you need to double check your double checking, because you'll have a dry top and you think you need to water because it's peat-free, but actually it's sitting in water on the bottom, and then all the roots of your plants are going to rot. So you might want to, I'm not going to with this because it's too dry, but you might want to tip it out and actually just feel or have a look on some of your plants as they're growing when they're little, and see how wet they are underneath as well. So always remember that especially your crops like potatoes and tomatoes are absolutely reliant on that water source. And there is another advance coming onto the market, which is wool-based compost, which we do sell here at the nursery as well. And because it's wool and a natural product, it will absorb that moisture in the same way as peat does. But again, it's another method of learning to work with it. Best of all, if you have any chance of having a compost bin in your garden, then please make use of it, even if it's your grass clippings and your leftovers, because as they decompose, they will create a lovely compost that you can mix in with peat free, doesn't have to be on its own, and it will help to nourish your plants. We here at the nursery have been big fans of peat free for the last 10 years, and I have to say it has dramatically improved over that time. So if you tried it a while back, give it another go. And we're trying to use peat reduced and always reducing our peat consumption. So I really believe that there is no point having a beautiful garden if we ruin the environment.